Hi, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. My name is Merrie, and this video today is really different from what I'm usually posting. I'm usually posting makeup videos and beauty content. I've always known that I wanted to make a video like this at some point, but I thought it was going to be way down the road. I thought it was going to be when my channel was way more established, when you guys had had a chance to get to know me a little bit better. But I've had so many experiences and so many things happen over the last week or so that have made it so unavoidably clear to me that I need to make this video right now. So I'm gonna really open up with you in this video and share my story. And I don't feel like I can properly share my story without talking about God, because He's been everything to me and He's been such a huge part of my story. So I hope you don't mind that. I'm not trying to push religion on anyone. I'm just trying to share my story. Everyone is welcome on my channel and I love you all. But my goal in making this is, if I could help one person, I would be so thrilled, and I'm just making this video with all the love in my heart. So I'm just gonna jump right in and share my story and my experiences. So we're gonna go all the way back to 2014. I was 21 years old, so do a little bit of math and that tells you that I'm 28 now. And I got married. I was a young newlywed, and I was the type of girl who'd always looked forward to marriage and family and had always wanted to have a family of my own. I was that little girl who was already thinking about when she'd have babies one day. I just really wanted a loving marriage and family and all of that. Nothing really could have prepared me for the situation I found myself in. I found myself in a really toxic, emotionally and mentally abusive marriage. There was never any physical abuse, but there was certainly emotional and mental abuse that I allowed and even enabled just from being really naive. There were certainly some red flags that had come up before marriage, but I just lacked the life experience to recognize them, and I just kind of brushed them under the rug and said, oh, well, no relationship's perfect, we'll work it out. These are just little things. But then we got married and those little things grew and grew and became really big things. I was devastated. I never could have imagined myself in that life. I never could have imagined myself being treated that way by the person who was supposed to love me the most. And I never could have imagined just the mess that I was going to be in. And at such a young age, I was devastated. My feelings started with a lot of anxiety, and that anxiety festered and festered and got uglier and uglier and grew into a really dark, heavy depression. And that depression grew into suicidal thoughts. It's difficult to say if I was in a toxic marriage because I was depressed, or if I was depressed because I was in a toxic marriage. I really think that the two fed each other. But regardless, I was not in a good place. And I just didn't know what to do, because I'd gotten married and I had promised that this relationship was going to be forever. I'd promised that to my husband and I'd promised that to God, and I intended for it to be forever, and I intended to work through hard things. I only thought that divorce was okay if there was physical abuse or cheating. So I just didn't see a way out at all. And I tried everything I knew how to do to make the situation better. And I really thought that if I could be selfless enough and if I could do enough for him, that it would improve the situation. So I would try and try and try and try, but it was so disheartening, and it felt like the more I tried in that marriage, the worse it got. And my way of coping was to fantasize about ending my life. I would think about it very frequently. There were many periods of time where it was like at the forefront of my mind all day. And I definitely had a plan, a detailed plan of how I was going to do it. There were many times when I said, today's the day that I'm doing it. It was a very real, they were very real thoughts for me. I was just in so much pain and so much darkness that it felt like there was no way out. It felt like ending my life would be the only way to get out of the situation. Thinking about ending my life became kind of a comfort for me. It was like, oh my goodness, I just can't deal with all of this. Well, I could just end it all, and that thought would comfort me. Thinking of ending things was also a way that I could get revenge on my husband, and I felt so silenced and unheard and small in that marriage, and I felt that if I were to end my life, that would put a big message across to him about how the way that he treated me made me feel. Needless to say, I was in a really bad place. A really, really bad place. It was really bad. I really, really resisted getting help because I think the reason why is deep down, I knew that if I were to uncover all the layers of the situation I was in, it would really uncover what a toxic relationship I was in, and I wasn't ready to really look at that. I wasn't ready to end the relationship. I was scared. I would much rather blame all my emotions on the birth control I was taking or whatever else I could and really downplay it to other people. I'd rather do that than actually get help and look at the situation. So I would get some help here and there. I went on medication for a time. I really didn't like being on medication. I thought that it made me weak. I thought that it was something to be ashamed of. So as soon as I felt like I could sort of function, I went off of it. I really, really lost myself. I felt like I had completely lost myself. I felt so alone. Even though I was married, I felt incredibly lonely, more lonely than I'd ever felt or ever have felt in my life. And I've always been a person of faith, and I would reach out to God. I would cry out to God. I would pray with all my heart. And during that time, I couldn't feel God. I couldn't feel his comfort or his love. I just felt so much darkness and heaviness, and I didn't understand why it felt like God had forgotten me. I didn't understand how God could let this happen, where all I wanted was a loving family and a loving marriage, and I didn't understand why he'd let me end up in the situation I was in. Every time I made a plan to end my life, the thing that would stop me was thinking of my parents. I've always known without a doubt how loved I am by my wonderful parents. And they knew a very little bit about what was going on. I told them a very little bit about the emotional struggles I had. I made sure to blame it completely on, outside reasons, nothing to do with my marriage. But I had let them know some of the struggles I was having. They were just so loving and so supportive, even with the very little that I let them know about what was going on. And they just let me know how much they loved me. And I just knew that if I were to act on my feelings, that they would be so devastated. And I just couldn't bear to do that to them, even though I so badly wanted to end everything. There was one day when we had been married for about 2.5 years at this point. And I mean, there were happy times in the marriage, and there were, not every day was a day that I thought about ending my life, but overall it was just a really, really, really hard couple of years. I mean, harder than anything I could have even imagined. And there was this one day, it was the day before Mother's Day, and I was at the store buying Mother's Day presents for my mom and my mother-in-law, and I was on the phone with my husband. A really, really ugly conversation occurred, and he got really, really angry. And something just snapped in me. I got off the phone and I just started shaking, and I just thought, I can't do this anymore. And I said to myself, I either really am ending my life today or I have to get away from him. And you have to understand that I didn't think it was okay for me to leave my marriage. I thought that I'd promised forever with this person no matter what, and that meant no matter what, and that I needed to just do everything I could to make him happy, even if it went against my personal boundaries or anything like that. I wasn't even thinking of divorce. I was just thinking I needed some space from him, and I thought that that was bad. But I just knew that I couldn't go on living how I'd been living. And I was in Walmart and I was just shaking. I literally felt like my limbs were numb. I felt like I was like floating through the air. I went out to my car and I started driving. I didn't even know where I was gonna drive to, but I knew I was gonna do something drastic. I had the good sense to pull over the car because I couldn't even like feel my hands or anything. I Googled the suicide hotline phone number and I called them, and a man answered, and for the first time in my 2.5 years of marriage, I spoke aloud to another person that there were some not great things going on in my marriage. And I could not believe that I was telling anyone, because I thought that I needed to be loyal to my husband and not tell anybody, don't air out your dirty laundry, I thought. But I told him what was going on and that it was causing me to want to end my life. And he said, do you have family who lives close by who you could go and be with? And I said, yeah, I do have family close by, but I can't go to them. That wouldn't be okay. My marriage comes first. And the man said, it is okay. And he said, in a situation like this, you need to make sure you're taken care of above all else. So go to your family, tell them what's going on, and let them support you while you get help and figure out what you need to do. And I got off the phone with him and I'll never forget that day. So I went to my parents' house and they were gone. So I called them and told them to come home and that it was an emergency. I sat there waiting for them to get home. I just felt this feeling of peace totally envelop me. And it was peace that I had not felt in a long time. And I just felt this voice, not like I heard a voice, but I felt a voice telling me that I was loved, that I was of value, that I didn't need to be treated the way that I was allowing myself to be treated, and that it would be better for me to get a divorce than to end my life. I was just in such a dark place that was like such a novel idea to me. I spent about a week away from my husband. I just stayed with my parents. I told them everything that had been going on. They didn't know anything before that. And they were just as loving and supportive as could possibly be. They didn't tell me that I should end my marriage. They didn't tell me that I should stick with it. They just showed me so much love in whatever I decided to do. And I was really leaning toward getting a divorce. So I got together to talk with my husband, who had spent that week striving to make positive changes in his own life, which really took me by surprise. In my heart, I did not want to go back with him, but in my mind, I felt like I needed to give him another chance, and I felt pressured to give him another chance. And so I did. I went back with him. Things were better for a very short time, and then they went back to the way they were, and then they got worse. It's interesting how I was able to get back to that really bad place emotionally and mentally, but I did. And I was back to being suicidal and making plans to end my life, and I just felt so confused. I questioned myself so much when I was with him, and I know it doesn't make sense. I know that watching this, you're probably thinking like, what were you thinking? But it's the place where I was at. It was the relationship I was in. It was where I was at emotionally and mentally, and it was not a good place. I started to improve personally. Makeup is actually what started to kind of heal me, funny enough. But I stumbled upon my first ever makeup tutorial. It was by Candy Johnson, and I was just hooked. And I would just escape into makeup land. I would watch like 2 hours of makeup tutorials a day, and it just brought me a lot of joy, and it was an escape. And I literally felt, this sounds so cheesy, but I really did literally feel like Candy Johnson was my friend. If you've watched her videos, you know how just like loving and warm she is, and how she talks about like wanting to give you a hug through the camera. And like, it meant a lot to me at the time because I was really lonely and really isolated. And I really believed what she said, which I know sounds so cheesy, but at the time it meant a lot to me. And then I started doing makeup on other people. I didn't even really know that it could be a profession. I just couldn't get enough of makeup, so I started doing it on my friends. And then my friends of my friends would reach out and ask if they could hire me, and they'd even pay me and stuff. And I just loved it, and I started to feel like I mattered and like I had worth. And it gave me something to care about for me. It gave me something to work on for myself rather than just surviving. I started to really see myself in a different way, and in a better way. Little by little, the darkness in my life started to lift. And little by little, I started to remember who I was. And I learned to completely separate my own inner peace and happiness and well-being from anything that my husband was doing. And I learned that he could make his decisions and it didn't have to affect my happiness. I got a lot stronger. And unfortunately, my marriage did not improve, even though I was improving as a person. I started to stand up for myself more. I started to set some boundaries, which really rattled things in the marriage. But I finally wasn't scared to do that anymore because I was just starting to see clearly. I actually started going to therapy by myself, and I actually wasn't completely honest with the therapist about what was going on in the marriage. And the reason for that is because I wasn't being completely honest with myself. I wasn't ready to fully face what was going on, but I at least got so much help and support in therapy and was able to figure out some things for myself. I got a lot better and I got a lot stronger, and I started to be happy again. I started to learn to love myself and to respect myself. So fast forward, and at this point I'd been married for 3.5 years. Basically, there was a day where a big fight happened. Even though it was not pretty, I felt so much peace. I had an experience where I just felt God's presence so strongly. I literally felt like I was being hugged. I just felt this warm hug envelop me, and I felt a voice so lovingly say to me, "I will still love you if you decide to get a divorce." That was really monumental for me because, like I said earlier, I had always considered my marriage as something that just needed to last forever no matter what, because I'd promised God and I'd promised him, and I thought that what God wanted me to do was stick it out no matter what. And so to feel his approval and support in ending things was really what I needed. And I had several other just really personal spiritual experiences where I knew that it was time to move on. So I ended that marriage. I was able to basically start my life over again. I spent so much time feeling like my life was over. And I had no idea that my life had not even begun yet. I cannot tell you the blessings and the joy and the magic that has happened since then. So many opportunities came my way, and I just continued to grow, and it was amazing. And where I am now is honestly the happiest I've ever been. Now I'm married to my amazing husband, Austin. I got remarried and we have an amazing marriage that I'm so grateful for. He's amazing and he really does treat me like a queen. And I appreciate him so much. And we have our beautiful daughter, Ivy, who's just my entire world. And then I have my work, my makeup business that I love and enjoy so much and is my passion. Almost more than anything, I have experienced God in my heart, just healing my heart in a way that's unspeakable. And I can say that even though there was a time where I couldn't feel God and I felt forsaken by him, once I left that marriage, the big picture started to come together and I could see how God was watching over me every step of the way. I could see so many things that he protected me from, so many ways that even though I felt like everything was falling apart, he was taking care of me. Every prayer I ever uttered to him, all those prayers I did my best to call out when I was just in so much darkness and that I felt like no one was listening, he has answered every single one of those 100-fold. I believe that God allows us to experience heartbreak and experience hardships so that he can give us the most amazing gifts that we wouldn't have room in our hearts for without those experiences. I can honestly say I'm grateful for that experience because where I am now, my life just feels magical. And I think that a part of that is the space in my heart that was carved out to feel that gratitude and that love and that joy and that magic. So the reason why I wanted to make this video is to help anyone who is struggling with anything related to their mental health or is just going through a dark time. Specifically, if you're dealing with anxiety or depression or suicidal thoughts, I want you to know that you are not alone. And I want you to know that your best days are yet to come. You have to stay here. I'm so grateful that I'm still here today. If I had ended things, I never would have met Austin. I never would have become Ivy's mom. I never would have experienced the joy that I feel in my heart. I wouldn't have learned to become my own best friend and love myself. When I was going through those dark times, I really felt like I lost myself. I had never felt that miserable for that extended of a length of time. And the more time went on where I was just stuck in that darkness, the more it felt like I was never going to get myself back, like I was never going to be Merrie again. I thought at best I could get to a place of being able to function well and, just be better than I was. I just want to promise you that you will get better. Life will get better and life is going to be amazing for you. I promise. I want you to know that you matter and you're loved. This world needs you. And I'm telling you, you just have to stay. I need you to stay. I really, really urge you, if you're struggling, to get help. I resisted getting help so much. Part of it was that I just didn't know what it would look like to get help. I felt like what I was going through was unique to me. I felt like nobody would understand what I was going through. Nobody would know how to help me because it was just like so emotional and so big and so scary. But there are professionals who understand anxiety and depression and suicidal thoughts and everything in that realm, and they know tools of how to help you. So a great place to start is talking to your doctor, and they can talk to you about options with prescription, or they can recommend a therapist, or you can start the other way and start with a therapist and go from there. I have done my fair share of therapy over the last few years. I love it. I am a huge proponent of therapy, and I still to this day am on medication. And I'll never forget what my doctor said to me when I finally went and got on medication. It Because actually after my divorce, I mean, I was doing so much better, but I was still struggling with anxiety, and I didn't know why. It felt so like outside of my control. So I finally went to my doctor. He told me how he was so proud of me for coming in to get help. And he said something that I'll never forget. He said, "Those who are weak pretend they are strong and don't get help, while those who are strong know they are weak and get the help they need." So I've always remembered that. It's the strong thing to do to get help. Life is hard. We go through challenges. But you don't have to just live in darkness. There are things that you can do to get help. And it's a process, but that's not just the way life is supposed to be. It's not just supposed to be that hard day to day, I promise. So what I say, and I'm not any kind of health professional whatsoever, this is literally just my opinion, but if there's anything going on inside of your head or your emotions that is causing it to be difficult for you to get through your day-to-day life for a prolonged amount of time, whether that be a month or a few weeks or however long, you can go talk to somebody about that and see what you could do. It could be as simple as a few therapy sessions to turn everything around for you, or maybe starting on medication. Also, I want you to know that my DMs are always open. I love you. I don't care if we've never spoken or met or anything. I want you to know that I love you. And I'm here for you, and I am sending you love through this video. You are not alone. You matter. And whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is, it's gonna be okay. And it's gonna be better than okay. It's gonna be so, so good. Your best days are yet to come. And you're gonna get to a point someday when you're gonna be able to say that you're grateful for the things that you went through. So I just wanna leave you saying, God hears every prayer. And God is watching over you no matter what. Even if it doesn't feel like it, even if you feel so alone, He has a plan beyond what you could imagine. I mean, the way that my life has turned out has been so much more amazing and so much more beautiful than I ever would have even known how to ask for. I asked God for what I wanted, and He had something so much better for me. I'm going to put some information in the description box of some resources for help and therapy, like at different budgets and things like that. So check out the description box. You just have an amazing day, and I love you. Bye.